Welcome to the world of beer brewing. In this demonstration, we'll go over the entire process of brewing beer at home, from grain to glass. When it's time for your brew day, make sure you have all the equipment and ingredients you need before you get started. If you have a starter kit, refer to the included equipment list. Brew day is ready to begin. The first step is to collect water and fill your kettle with 6 gallons of clean, good-tasting water. Next, pour the steeping grains from your recipe into a mesh bag. Tie it closed and place it in the water. Then tie it to the handle of the kettle. Turn your stove to high to steep your grains for 30 minutes. During this time, use your thermometer to monitor the temperature of the water as it heats. If the water reaches 170 degrees in under 30 minutes, turn off the heat and allow the grains to finish steeping off heat. Once done, remove the mesh bag. You can let the absorbed liquid drain out, but don't squeeze the bag. Continue heating the water until it reaches a boil. Once the water boils, turn off the heat and add the malt extract included with your recipe. Add it slowly, taking care to stir enough to dissolve it completely. Once all the extract is dissolved, turn the heat back on and bring the liquid to a boil once again. Once a rolling boil is reached, be careful not to let the liquid boil over. Adjust the heat to maintain a gentle rolling boil and start your hop timer. Most beer recipes call for a 1-hour boil, starting at the end of the hot break, and the hops that give your beer its bitterness are added at the beginning of this 60-minute period. Add these hops to a bag, put them in the liquid, and tie them to the kettle. At this point, you should have some downtime while the liquid is boiling and before the next kettle addition. This is a great opportunity to make sanitizer to sanitize the remaining equipment, which can be done all in one bucket. Add some sanitizer to your fermenter filled with water and give it a good shake to make sure it's fully sanitized. Next, set up your wort chiller, then place it in your kettle with 20 minutes remaining in the boil. Be sure to connect the chiller's hose to your water source and direct the open end somewhere safe, like a sink. Add more hops throughout the boil period according to your recipe. If your recipe calls for any clarifiers like whirlfloc, they should be added with 5 minutes remaining in the boil. Your recipe may have other ingredients that it calls for adding late in the boil or at the end, called flame out additions. Make these additions as instructed. Once you reach the end of your boil, turn off the heat and begin cooling your wort. Cover the kettle and slowly turn on the water until you reach a slow but steady stream coming out of the chiller. Run the chiller until the wort reaches a safe temperature for your yeast. Then, begin transferring your wort to your sanitized fermenter. Install the vinyl tubing from your kit to the spigot on the kettle and direct the open end into your fermenter. Transfer a small amount of the wort to your hydrometer jar to measure the sugars. Gently drop the hydrometer into the jar. Let it come to a rest, then note the specific gravity on the recipe sheet or in your beer log. Next, use sanitized scissors to cut open the yeast packet. Then open the fermenter and pour the yeast into the wort. Oxygen is essential for yeast growth and reproduction, so make sure to aerate the wort by giving the fermenter a good shake before you leave it to ferment. Fermentation is the process by which the yeast consume the sugars present in the wort and convert them to alcohol and carbon dioxide. Place the fermenter somewhere out of direct light and with as steady as possible of a temperature, around 68 degrees Fahrenheit for fermentation. You should see the first signs of fermentation within a day or 2, or 3. It varies because yeast is a living organism. You'll see bubbles form on the surface of the wort, activity in the airlock, and eventually thick foam called krausen will form before it falls back into the beer. About 7 to 10 days after the point of high krausen, your beer will be done fermenting. You're ready to bottle when there's been no activity in the airlock for about 3 days. Once you've got fermented beer, it's time to bottle and carbonate it. Carbonation is provided by adding a small amount of fresh sugar to the bottle and then sealing it. Boil the included sugar in 2 cups of water until dissolved and set aside. Next, move the fermenter to the edge of a counter or table so you can fill the bottle via siphon. Make some sanitizer and sanitize the remaining bottling equipment, including the tubing and bottle filler. Sanitize your bottles by submerging them for 2 minutes and then letting them drain. A bottle rack or bottle tree is very helpful, but any foam remaining in the bottles is absolutely fine. Don't fear the foam is what they always say. Transfer your beer from your fermenter into a separate bucket placed below it. Connect the tubing and open the spigot. Add the priming sugar solution to the bucket so that it is evenly distributed to the wort. Once the bottling bucket is filled, it's helpful to move it onto a counter. Install the bottle filler's open end directly onto the spigot of the bottling bucket. Fill the hydrometer jar first, which you can set aside until you are done bottling. Then, sanitize your bottle caps in a small bowl and keep them handy. Next, it's time to begin filling. Fill the bottle all the way to the top and then lower it away from the filler, leaving about 1 inch of headspace in the bottle. To cap the bottles, press down firmly on the capper's handles to crimp the cap onto the bottle. You should leave a round dimple in the top of the bottle cap if you've sealed the bottle firmly enough. Use your hydrometer to measure the specific gravity of the finished beer. You can approximate the beer's alcohol content pretty closely using these measurements. Once the bottles are filled, they are set aside for 2 weeks to allow natural carbonation to occur. This additional time in the bottle is also important for full maturation of the beer's flavors and aroma. At the end of your 2-week wait, move a couple of bottles into the fridge overnight, crack open your homebrew, and enjoy. You've just made beer.